All right. Okay. God bless you, everyone. Thank you for I just kind of want to get these out there, you know, um, because I came from really kind of a dark place in my life, and I was still able, to find God. And I think the reason I'm making these videos is more because, it doesn't matter, where you were or are in your life. And if you are having difficulty in your life, you know that, like, a person even like me, you know I if I'm able to find salvation, you know then, I mean, anybody can. You know what I'm saying? I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. Okay. So, just, I just think I'm making these videos just to show is people like who think they're too lost or too messed up, that or, like, to, you know to think that they're too far gone in life, that they can't get it, that they can't find salvation, that God won't accept them. I'm living proof that that is not the case. um, I was able to find salvation even though i was like, I came from the dirt. Like, I used to consider myself like I was very insecure in my life, with having epilepsy. And then, I didn't have a lot of self confidence, I guess you can say. Um, so in that, here I'm gonna try to finish this testimony with this video. So I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible. And then I'm gonna go on into talking about other things. So, God bless you guys, and thank you, if you're making it this far with the testimony and stuff. I mean, I just want to, give somebody, like, if anybody's going through anything and tough times in life, you know, you can hit me up, message me in the comments or something, and, we can chat and stuff. And that's really the reason why I'm doing it. And I have some other things that I want to talk about. I've been having some dreams, um, and, once get into some other videos, I want to talk about, uh, some things that have been happening in the world and connecting them with the Bible. So, um, so in my last video, I left off where I fell off. You know, I I got lost again. I started drinking. I fell into temptation. I started drinking, and then I started doing a bunch of stuff. Fell into lust. I was addicted to, all sorts of things. Alcohol. Um, I was addicted to, like, being prideful. I was trying to look good so I can get some girls. I can do this, you know what I mean? Like, uh, impure thoughts, basically. Because I thought that was gonna make me feel better, right? So I came into my life. I came into, I would go out. I was working out a lot. I was, that was in part, that was a good thing. Working out is good, but you can't make it, your whole life. Like, there's just more things to life than working out and trying to make yourself look good. That's a sin. It's pride. It feels good, and you feel good looking in the mirror. You're like, oh, I look good, and this is why all the girls are looking at me, and this and that. And it's just like, and that's where I was, and then I was addicted to alcohol, and then eventually, um, like I was going out every weekend, with my friends. I was spending a bunch of money just on alcohol, and then eventually I got addicted to. I started doing some other drugs, some harder drugs, right? And it came to a point where I was hanging out with I had met this friend of mine. I had left my job in Iowa City, right? But when I was working there, I was hanging out with this dude. I was coming back to my hometown, basically, and I would go back during the work week and go to work over there, the college town and whatnot. But on the weekends, I would come home, and I would come home, I would go hang out with the boys, and we were into some stupid stuff, And I remember one day, um, I was at work, and my friend called me, and he called me, and he's like, "Hey, bro, you know, Nick died. He was like one of my best friends. He was like a big brother to me. And I was on the phone. I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, nah, man. Like, what are you talking about, dude? And he's like, quit playing, man. And he's like, you think I'd lie to you about this, man? And I'm like, and I kind of just froze there. I was getting ready to paint the truck. I was mixing up some paint, and I was gonna put it in a paint cup, and I was gonna go spray it, right? And like it hit me, like I was just like, for like 2 weeks, I just didn't want to accept it. I thought it was a lie. I thought they were lying that he died, man. Like, and it ended up being true, right? And then at that point, like, I remember a few weeks before that, I was. This part's kind of crazy, right? I was over at his house, and we used to do drugs. And he used to be a sergeant in the army, and he was a weapons specialist, and he had some other stuff, but he had a bunch of guns all over the house, right? He had a bunch of guns all over the house, and you know, um, like one day, I I was sleeping because I would crash on the couch, and and like one day I had a dream of this giant snake, like it was the size like of an anaconda. It just come up to me right to my face, and like how the like a cobra, a king cobra kind of gets up and just kind of does that. He did that, but it came up right to my face in my dream, right? And at that moment, like that was it. And then I had woken up, right? And then when I woke up that morning, like my buddy he was still alive then, right? He's like, "Man, you all right, man?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And he's like, "Nah, man." He said, "You were talking in your sleep, but you were talking some sort of language, some different language, man. I didn't know what you were saying. I thought you were possessed." And I'm like, "Whatever, man. Like, nah, man. I'm all right, dude. I thought maybe I had a seizure or something." But if I would have had a seizure, I would have felt it. Your whole body goes, your bones hurt, your muscles hurt, your brain hurts. I had none of that. So I was just, it was kind of weird. And then a few weeks down the road, he had overdosed. He went into cardiac arrest. Right. He was, he, you know, I didn't connect the things together. I didn't connect the dream with eventually him passing away, right? Until a few years later, like this will get into some more recent stuff, but yeah, I had that dream, and a few weeks later he dies, and then I went into a deeper, like, man, I mourned my he was like a brother to me, and I mourned his death, like I was, I was crying, you know, and it's just it was kind of a weird time in my life, like things started becoming more clear. I didn't want to go out anymore. I didn't want to go and hang out anymore, and I was like, man, like that could have been me, maybe, you know what I'm saying? Because we were kind of doing the same kind of things, and I'm like, this could have been me, like, and so, anyways, few years down the road, or like a year, maybe 2 years, I I I, I started coming back to God. I started reading the Bible more, and I was never really a churchgoer. I haven't been, like, but I started reading the Bible, and I just didn't want to go out anymore, man. Like, I remember I was out and I was all drunk. I was drunk, and I remember looking into the crowd. Everybody's just dancing around, doing this, like it seems like everybody's having a good time. But at that moment, even though I was really drunk, I had gotten like a sense of clarity. I was thinking to myself, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, what is this? Like, I feel like this is gonna be fun, but I'm having no fun here. Like, you know, cause when I would sober up, I'd feel empty. I'd feel, you know, I'd it was just not only did I feel empty, but I was like, man, how much money did I spend last night? I spent like maybe like $150 a night just on drinks, and this was at like I was doing this all the time, and I'm like, I was wasting my time, wasting my life, wasting my money. You know, um, it's just it kind of hit me like it hit me. I was like, what am I doing? So I didn't want to drink anymore, and I was kind of slowly kind of backing off, and then I started reading the Bible more then, and then eventually I didn't want to go out anymore, and I had told my one buddy, and I was like, I don't think I want to go out, and he was kind of like, well, we should go out, man. You just go. I mean, you don't have to spend any money. I'll buy the drinks and stuff. I was like, all right. So I went, and then we got into an argument while we were drunk, and to the point where it kind of got physical, and he was like a brother to me too, man. And I was like, man, why is this happening? I'm like, oh, because I'm drinking. We're drunk, and we're doing stupid stuff. And so, like, and then, like, I ended up walking home because I just didn't want to be there. And I sent him a message, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man. And it wasn't. Anyways, after that, we haven't hung out. That happened maybe about 4 years ago. And, you know, I still love him like a brother, and I pray for him. You know, um, I pray for anyone who's still lost in that, and to come, to find Jesus, man. Like, but and all in time, people will come to God if they want to. It has to be their decision. Salvation is your own, and you know, um, a few years later, I don't drink anymore. I was addicted to, I had lustful things in my life. I quit all of that, and I just recently, like, completely quit smoking. I'm never gonna smoke marijuana anymore. I'm never gonna smoke weed again. And you know, um, but yeah, that's what it's been. Um, I'll go into some other stuff, some theology of um in my in a couple of the videos. But I just wanted to put this out there, that I was completely lost in the sauce, and I was still I had opened my eyes. So it doesn't matter where you're at in life. You doing being thugged out, to life, and you feel like you're still lost, and you still feel empty inside. I know what it's like. I've been there. So, I still am not perfect. Trust me, I am not perfect, and that's basically my testimony. I've been, every day I'm getting better. For I'm a better me. I'm not better than anybody else. I don't consider myself like, everybody's going through their own thing. And it's, you just, you gotta seek the truth. Okay. I was ignorant, even though everything was in front of me, showing me that this is not the way. I would ignore it and just keep going. Because I wanted to be cool with my friends. And do this and do that. I wanted to be cool, but it's not worth it. It's not. Okay. So, um, that's it for this video. My testimony, I guess. Next videos are gonna be shorter. You know, um, so I just wanted to put that out there, and you know, um, I'm gonna start talking about some other things, not so much about me, but about how God saved my life, how Jesus Christ came into my life, and you know, I think I've been having. I'm gonna talk about some dreams that I've been having. You know, um, but yeah, that's about it for now. Um, Thank you for listening. If you made it this through, or made this far, so God bless you. All right. Remember, it's never too late to start looking, to start seeking God. Okay. Um, you know, um, I'm far from perfect. So I just want people to, like, really think down deep inside, like, where do we go after we die? Like, really think about it, and think about everything else in life and what really matters in this life. you know um and I think the only thing that matters is saving your soul, because that's the only thing that we're going to be able to take up for the eternal of our life, for our eternal life. Okay. So God bless, and thank you for listening. I know it's long, but hey, you know, I could have made it longer. Well, yeah. All right. God bless you guys, and have a good night. Later.